Hey guys, Ryan here, and man, I don't even know where to start with this video. I mean, there's just so much news that's been coming out. That because I've been paying attention a bit more to the news sources and whatnot recently. I noticed that there was some trucks. We got some truck stuff to talk about. The new rules package for 20, or the quote unquote new rules package for 2020. We'll talk about that for a little bit. I will talk about the Bubba Bowman thing because I didn't mention it in my Roval review, mainly because I didn't see it as that important, but everybody's been making a fuss about it, so I figured I might as well talk about it. So, yeah, we got quite a bit of stuff to talk about on this episode, despite not really having that much to talk about. Yeah, so I guess we'll start with the truck since that's the order I did it in. Actually, first, quick mention. Um, Reddick has now officially been confirmed to the number 8 car. Everybody kind of knew it was coming when Hemrick was announced that he was leaving RCR. So Reddick will be going to the number 8 car, like I said in a video. How many weeks ago was that now? Was that 2 weeks ago already? Man, it just feels like it was a while ago. Um, yeah, so we've got the but then there was also the push because as some of you guys might not have noticed because you guys might not have watched the race, but the truck race at Las Vegas a few weeks back, that was their cutoff race for their playoffs, and well, let's just say it went there was a pretty big flop on the engine manufacturer side of things, and Ilmor has actually Ilmor, the company that produces the engines for the truck series, and they are the exclusive engine provider. So it's not like teams have options of where to get their engines from. They have come out and said that yes, all the engine issues were like I think they found out that there was something to do with like the high temperatures and that their engines weren't prepared to handle the high temperature for that long, but it ended up costing guys like Infinger, Sauter, Crafton. I think both the young motorsports cars, the 20 and the 02, both blew motors. But most importantly, the first two guys I mentioned there, Infinger and Sauter, missed the cut line because of it. Now, I kind of knew when because I kind of knew when this first came out that there was going to be a petition or not a petition, but the team themselves, Thor Sport, were going to try and, what's it called? They were going to try and ask NASCAR to reinstate their trucks and basically do a double or nothing at Phoenix in a few weeks, which, I mean, I get it. Their trucks were eliminated because of an issue outside of their control. Outside of their control, and that they would want a second chance. But I kind of knew that I was not necessarily super, like expecting. Okay, you're gonna get the second chance because it's not that they had engine issues every single race of the round. It was one race. Granted, one bad race can put you out of the playoffs. But yeah, so you have guys like, but yeah, those two guys that were both out. And to be honest, I think if they'd only petitioned to put Grant Infinger back in, I think they probably could have won that appeal. But they ended up not winning the appeal. It came out earlier this week that NASCAR is standing by their decision on the trucks being cut, which I do stand by this decision because they did have two incident-free races, at least on Ilmore's side. Like they didn't have any like engine failures prior to that cost them race wins and whatnot, or not even race wins, or even just good finishes in the first two races. So I mean, I think if they'd made the appeal for one of their trucks, I feel like they could have maybe gotten it away with it a little bit more because Infinger, I believe, is still the points leader based on the regular points standings, which I don't know how good a look that is for a series to have the points leader out in the first round of the playoffs. I mean, of course, he's yet to win this year, so I mean, it kind of makes sense that he wouldn't make it too far in the championship, but the fact that he retained the points lead through this, I mean, I think he is still the truck points leader. Um, yeah, that certainly isn't making anyone look good at this point. Um, but yeah, Sauter, I feel like deserved to be in the next round though a little bit less because he hasn't performed since his at Dover way back in the spring. I really don't think he's done really much of anything to really deserve that spot in the playoffs or to deserve that spot in the playoffs. I mean, that's not even counting the fact that he completely junked another playoff contender at I think it was Iowa. But yeah, so there was all that went down. That was the big kind of truck news that came out. Um, and in case I haven't mentioned it yet, Xfinity Series, and this kind of ties into the new rules for next year. NASCAR has been considering cutting live pit stops from the Xfinity Series and Truck Series, which I mean, I feel like the trucks might be able to get away with it. I just don't think the Xfinity Series. I think if the trucks did it, I'd be fine with it. I just think the Xfinity Series should keep that to try and keep it as a way for teams to test like new staff, like new pit crew guys for the Cup Series. I get that as a way to cut costs for the smaller teams such as Morgan Shepherd, who's an Xfinity only team that's actually somewhat decent. Colleague Racing. Colleague Racing can test their own Colleague Racing doesn't need to test guys to move up to the Cup Series with them because they aren't going to Cup, or at least they aren't currently looking at going to Cup, or at least don't have anywhere near the funding put together for it. Now, of course, a couple years down the road, if they get Chastain, which is rumored, they could maybe put together a bunch of race wins, especially considering AJ Allmendinger won at the Roval for them. But yeah, so yeah, I can see it for teams like Colleague Racing, uh, SS, SS Greenlight Racing, and whatnot. All would be pushing for this because it cuts their costs down, and they don't really have a need to train pit crew members for the Cup Series. Because the Cup Series, from the sounds of it, is keeping the live pit stops. They aren't even considering getting rid of them for that. And to be honest, I can see a lot of things. I can see reasons for it on both sides. On the pro side of getting rid of the pit stops, I mean, yeah, you lower the cost for all the teams in the Xfinity and Truck Series. But on the con side, I mean, that's like the most notable. That's probably gonna be the most noticeable thing that they could do to the cars to cut cost. And also, you then have, I mean, you've got like 10 pit, or you've got like 5 pit crew guys, and usually at least 2 on standby to replace just in case someone gets hit or something. You usually have 1 or 2 extra guys on standby. I mean, that's now 7 people that would be 7 people that would be without a job in NASCAR that really want a job in NASCAR. I mean, that would be a really, I feel like that's a way to kind of make the sport more of a country club than it already is because it's already so locked down. And that now, if you start limiting the options for a mechanic or someone else who's really good at doing the pit stops, that would really limit the opportunities for someone who's mechanically inclined to get into the sport. Now, of course, they will still need mechanics to fix the cars, but they won't need someone to be able to do it really, really quick or very, very coordinatedly. But I wouldn't be opposed to the Truck Series maybe getting rid of them entirely and not bringing them back. I think Xfinity, if they do get rid of them, should be brought back at some point. I can understand, like, okay, let's do away with them for a few years, kind of help cut costs. Though I think Xfinity probably should go to one manufacturer, like go to one engine manufacturer, and just kind of to try and help cut costs for the teams. Because right now with three engine manufacturers, it's like, yeah, they're really getting a lot of the manufacturer dollars there. Um, but yeah, so there's a lot of different things that they could do to cut costs. And speaking of cutting costs, this the cup rules were announced for next year, and some of the stuff they're doing to help level out the teams that have money and the teams that don't have money. Um, it looks like it's looking more and more likely that the next gen car or the Gen 7 car, um, because they're calling it the next gen car now for some reason. Um, but yeah, they're apparently that's looking like it's gonna end up being a spec car, which means less people working on the bodies. Again, less jobs in NASCAR. I mean, I feel like right now a job cut on NASCAR. I mean, NASCAR themselves has had a massive drop in employment over the last year or two. I don't have the exact numbers off the top of my head, but yeah, I feel like something like this, I mean, you would expect it considering how much the series expanded so rapidly from the 1990s to the mid 2000s, and then just kind of as they lost the star power that was helping fund the sport and making the sport popular, it shrunk back down to a reasonable spot. I'd say we're a little bit below what I would say is reasonable. I'd say reasonable is about here. We were here in like the 90s, mid 2000s. Um, so yeah. So I would say we definitely overinflated it, especially with putting all the emphasis on racing drivers that eventually are gonna have to retire. Um, but yeah, so I'd say the cost cutting measures. Though the big thing is, if let's say I'm Roger Penske and Shell and Pennzoil are still handing me a $10 million check, but it only costs, or let's say it only costs $10 million to build a competent cup car, and Shell is handing me $20 million. Yeah, I'm only gonna spend 10 million of that on the race car. Not Roger Penske. I mean, Eminem's handing, or Mars Candy or whatever, handing Joe Gibbs the money. It's like, yeah, they're gonna put they're gonna put enough into it that they can be competitive, and they're gonna just be competing with each other pretty much. So I mean, I feel like any amount of cost reduction, yes, it makes it more accessible for the smaller teams, but the big teams are still gonna try and find as many ways to put more money into it to get more out of it. I mean, that's how anything works. If you're committed to it, like if you're committed to finding a way to work something, or have enough money to pay someone to try and find a way to work something out, I mean, you can notice a lot of things. I mean, it's like the more spec you try and go, it's like, yeah, well then Penske and Gibbs will you're either gonna start getting those sponsors that look like, okay, well, it doesn't cost nearly that much, so I'm going to reduce my sponsorship, and then you have sponsors that aren't paying as much. So that when the sport does start the incline, it's like, okay, now why are we having to pay more? But yeah, so that's kind of the big thing, though, is like the sponsors, they're still paying that much, so um, they're probably still going to put that much into the race cars, which I feel like is just going to make the gap grow, like the gap between the halves, like the Penske's and the Joe Gibbs and like the Rick Ware Racings. Unfortunately, I feel like are going to get more spread out, despite that doesn't seem what the goal is. And the same thing with with this new Aero package, because they've actually confirmed that it will be following the same package in 2020. Like virtually nothing's really that different on the car. Like with the actual race car, there isn't anything super different. They're giving you two less guys to bring on the road with you. I did a little bit more research after talking with some friends and whatnot. And that does not count the pit crew. So they've got 10 guys behind the wall that are not pit crew members. And as opposed to 12 that they are allowed this year. But that will include crew chief, spotters, I believe, and like car chief and whatnot, and other mechanics, but not the pit crew. So at least that in on that term, um, that part's pretty good. But yeah, so overall though, I'm not personally a fan of the idea that they're flat footing it. Like if that's the goal, if they're gonna keep reducing the horsepower until they find a way to flat foot it around most of these tracks, I mean, I like it. Like if you look at tracks like Kentucky, they weren't running it flat out. Tracks like Darlington, they're still not running it flat out. I don't want to see them bring it to the point where you can flat out tracks like Darlington, Richmond. I mean, I feel like a little bit of the lifting's good, and I mean, I'd like to see them bring back the horsepower. Of course, what you got to please the manufacturers. You've got to please. You got to try and. You aren't going to be able to please everyone because there's fans that are super divided on. I want the low. I like this low horsepower. I want the high horsepower like sprint cars. Just make them 900 horsepower. Take the spoiler completely off. Just make them complete airplane wings. And it's like, okay. I would like to see them though. If they want to really kind of make a diverse package, or not a diverse package, but like make a short track package and a speedway package, like make more diversity in them because tracks like Indy and Pocono, sure they're the same length as Daytona, but a aero package that works at Daytona isn't going to work at Indy or Pocono. I mean, Pocono and Indy, you need high horsepower, low drag, and that's how you make the best racing at those types of tracks. As we're at Daytona, you can get away with low horsepower, high downforce because the draft is so kind of key at Daytona and has been. And drafting and whatnot and momentum works really well with banked corners, something Pocono and and even Pocono and Indy both don't have, and especially considering we've got 3 Pocono/Indy races in a row. Because we've got the Pocono doubleheader next year and then Indianapolis. So yeah, that's gonna be fun next year. Did I have something else I wanted? I felt like I had something else on the list of stuff on the top of my head that I wanted to talk about. Oh yeah, the Bubba Wallace, Alex Bowman thing. I mean, yeah, he threw some water at a guy. I mean, yeah, it doesn't look good to be throwing stuff at a guy that is on the ground getting medical attention. But I mean, as long as the water was cold and it was actually water and not Gatorade, I mean, I've heard people say, "Oh, it was Gatorade." I've heard people say it was water. I feel like if it was water, then it was. I mean, yeah, it was showing that he wasn't happy, but it wasn't like going over and actually getting in a fist fight with a guy like what happened with Boyer earlier this year. I still don't think that that's the right way to handle it if you're Bubba Wallace, but I think it's still not necessarily a. I mean, it's gotten people talking about the sport. It's gotten to the point where people are talking about the sport, and that's the best thing for a sport um that has had a dip, which I mean, no one is surprised or confused about that. That NASCAR has been dipping the last few years. And the best thing for any sport, game, group that is on a downswing or is losing members is to get people talking about it. Get it in the media. Get people's attention on it. Get people taking Bubba's side. Get people taking Bowman's side. This stuff is good for the sport. It gets people talking. Sure. It gets people like to watch this kind of stuff. They like to pick sides in arguments like this. As long as it doesn't get to the point where it is physically making it so that the drivers are unable to continue competing. I mean, yeah, you don't want to see them going over and just completely trying to kill each other. I mean, but like a simple fist fight with a few bumps and bruises here and there. I mean, yeah, you don't. I don't think that's the right way to handle it, but it does get people talking about the sport. And when you're in a when you're a sport on the decline, I don't think there's much that would be better for the sport. I mean, sure, you don't need it at every race. Even like the Clint Boyer thing earlier this year, that got people talking. Uh, Suarez and McDowell at Phoenix, it got people talking. I mean, even though there wasn't a physical fight here, I mean, even Johnson and Blaney at Watkins Glen, uh, Kyle Busch and William Byron. I mean, these kinds of things. I will admit, even though they might not be handling it the right way or the way I would handle it, because I don't like to resort to this kind of reaction, it gets people talking. And that's why guys like Kyle Busch that are outspoken and will say their mind are good for the sport. Same with Bubba. Guys who will wear their heart on their sleeve. I mean, that's good for the sport. And I'm not saying that the guys that don't do this, we don't need everybody to be a Tony Stewart, but we need people like this because I think it generates people talking about the sport, and it gets attention outside from outsiders in the sport that are actually interested in tuning in to see the next chapter of this rivalry. I mean, even if you look at it, Bowman and Dillon last week at Richmond. I mean, these things, they're all over the place this year. I mean, but yeah, I think that this is all really good for the sport because I guarantee people are tuning in to see the next chapter in, say, the Bowman Bubba rivalry or the Newman Suarez, or not the Newman Suarez, Newman Clint Boyer rivalry. I mean, especially considering how close those guys have been in points. I mean, I've kind of been interested to see if Newman was ever gonna pay him back for what happened there. I mean, I know that's quite a long way to wait, but I mean, they were both pretty much in nervous points battles. Now that Newman doesn't need to worry about the points, does he not? Does he go and just take his revenge on Boyer and basically eliminate Boyer from the playoffs in the round of 12 now? Because Boyer needs to worry about points, Newman doesn't. But yeah, stuff like this though, it generates the press and gets people talking about the sport. Sure, you will have the people that will be like, "Oh yeah, it's just a bunch of dumb rednecks," but it gets people talking, and there will be people that will tune in to see the next step in the rivalry. So I'm gonna stop ranting because I feel like I've done a lot of that in this episode. I hope this episode isn't super long for you guys. Also, if you guys notice that the quality or the frame rate or something is down on the video, please let me know. I mean, I'm working with what I got for stuff, but my membership on my premium membership for the recording software ran out, so it might be lower resolution or lower frame rate or something. Um, but yeah, so um, so just let me know though if it's noticeably worse or if it really doesn't make much of a difference. Because I just want to know what you guys see, or if you guys think that I should consider trying to keep it up to the standard I've been working at throughout the summer. Also, there are some links down. If you guys want to head on down below the video, there's a like button down there, the subscribe one as well, and the bell icon. If you guys want to really stay up to date on all the NASCAR news, I make videos. I'm gonna be making one. I think my next video is gonna be after Dover. That's where they're going this week, Dover. So after the Dover race, I think that's the next video I'm probably gonna make, unless some shocking bombshell announcement like the Busher Stenhouse one comes out. I think my next video is gonna be that one. I've had people ask me about viewer stream. Maybe I don't know when my next like racing with viewers stream is gonna be, because I'm gonna be traveling around a bit the week after next. So, and it's kind of midterm week, so hard to tell what I'm gonna be able to do content wise. Also, um, after I get done with midterms and whatnot, and I do have another series I want to be doing. I just want to get your guys' feedback here. For the people that have actually made it this far in the video, please leave a comment. Let me know what you guys think about if I did like an early morning like Q&A live stream either once a day or once a week. Would you guys tune in? I mean, I could do it somewhere around campus, or like go to some scenic place on campus and just kind of do Q&A session early in the morning before class. 'Cause I mean, I'm more than capable of getting up quite a bit before class, at least a few days out of the week. So, um, yeah, just kind of let me know your guys' thoughts on that. Also, links in the description if you want to support the channel. But I'm not going to keep you guys here any longer. Have a great day. Enjoy whatever you guys are going to be doing with the rest of your. This is going to be coming out on a Thursday, so have a great rest of your Thursday. See you guys next time. Bye.